In other news, the communist-run island has been bracing for a possible attack following repeated warnings from Donald Trump. With tensions high over the US blockade on the Caribbean nation, Cuban authorities have confirmed they held what they're describing as respectful talks with their US counterparts on the 10th of April. For more, let's cross live to our correspondent in Havana. Ed Augustin is standing by for us. Good to have you with us on the programme. Ed, tell us what more we know at this stage about these talks between US and Cuban officials.
Well, these are secret talks, so we hardly know much more than what you said in your introduction. Both governments, both sides, have acknowledged that talks took place on the 10th. They've acknowledged that those talks took place in Havana, as was first published in US media by Axios, that gets a lot of leaks from the State Department very, very quickly these days. And we know that they were high-level meetings. So the Cuban Deputy Foreign Minister and high-level people just below Marco Rubio in the State Department that deal with Western Hemisphere affairs. What we also know is the context. The United States has been sanctioning Cuba for 2/3 of a century, with the exception of 2 years under President Obama, just over 10 years ago. Sorry, just around 10 years ago. That was, except for those 2 years, it's been under sanctions, illegal under international law. And since January, the United States is stopping almost all oil getting into the country, which is killing an awful lot of civilians, mainly children and women, and third-of-all, elderly people. But that's the context that these negotiations, which the Cuban government amazingly calls respectful, are taking place.
And Ed, in your view, is the Cuban leadership likely to accept the conditions that are going to be set by the United States?
Well, the brave person these days, looking at the White House, trying to make a predict about what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes, let alone in the coming weeks, months, or perhaps years. What we know is that the Cuban government's a stubborn old thing. And in the sense, it doesn't respond to regular geopolitical laws, quote unquote. The United States tried everything for 2/3 of a century to overthrow this island. It's a small, poor island, downtrodden, so close to Florida that you can swim it. One amazing woman did. And they haven't been able to. If you're rational, looking at how weak Cuba is now, and having lost its main ally, Venezuela, that was keeping it afloat in terms of petrol, you'd have to think, well, surely the game's up. Yet the failure and the unpopularity so far of the war in Iran has been, I think the Cuban authorities are happy about that, because it seems to put Trump on the back foot, seems to have taken the steam out of that project. They're a little bit less enthusiastic than they were in early January. And I think the other thing I'd say is that speaking to diplomats here in Cuba, foreign diplomats, European diplomats, they're saying these talks are not going well because the two sides talk past each other. The United States, Trump aside, who now talks of taking Cuba, tends to believe that it's promoting democracy and human rights. Cuba sees that as a foreign power trying to take control over its sovereignty. And so it's a case of we don't understand each other very much. And so from what I hear, those talks are not progressing very far.
Well, and thanks so much for bringing us all of that. That's our correspondent in Havana, France 24's Ed Augustin.